Chapter 4.1, Day 1, Student Journal, page 76. In this activity, we are going to match each polynomial function. So these are the polynomial functions given on the table here with their graphs. So the graphs of these functions are given below here. So we're going to match each function with their graphs below. So the first function is going to be fx equals x cubed minus x. To graph this, I'm going to use Desmos calculator and match with the graph below. When I use the Desmos calculator, and I will teach the Desmos calculator in a different video. So when I graph this, it matches with the graph letter A. So you're going to pause this video and graph all these functions into Desmos calculator using Desmos calculator and matches with the graphs below. So if you already graphed the function letter A, you can see that the graph below matches with the graph A with A. So this is the function that matches with graph A. Now when you're going to graph function B, negative x cubed plus x, that is going to match with graph D. C using Desmos calculator matches with the B graph, and D, x to the power 4, it matches with F, and E, which is x cubed, and it's a parent function of a cubic function. So it's a parent function. Cubic function means degree is 3. So this one has a degree 3, and it's a parent function that matches with E. And the last one, it matches with C. Now I'm going to explain these graphs and how the graph A matches with A. So just remember, whenever it's a cubic function, the graph of a cubic function looks like S shape. So any function that has a degree 3 will look like a S shape. And any graph that is even function means x to the power 2, x to the power 4, and so on will look like a U shape. So graph of a even function looks like a U shape. So that's the first thing we want to remember. Now we already have seen from Desmos calculator that function A, x cubed minus x, matches with this function, this graph. So if you look at the x-intercept, the ones that the graph cuts at x-axis is -1, 0, and +1. So the x values or zeros or x-intercepts are x-intercept for this one is -1 and 0 and 1. That is from the graph. Since the graph leading coefficient is positive, so that graph is going to rise from left to right. So this graph is rising from left to right because the leading coefficient that we call A is positive. A is greater than 0. It means it's rising. If we talk about letter B, and then the leading coefficient for this one is negative. So this number, if it is negative, it means is going to be falling graph, fall from left to right. So the D graph, that is function negative x cubed plus x, that's fall from left to right. Now, if you talk about the x values or x-intercept, in this one, the x-intercepts are, so this is -1, 0, and 1. So the x-intercept for the B is again -1, 0, 1. This is also called x-intercepts or zeros or x values. Now we saw that the function C, that is negative x to the power 4 plus 1. So there is a translation up 1 unit. If you remember, if it is a plus k, it's up k unit. So this one is plus k, so it's going to be up 1 unit. This negative tells me that the function or the u, which is going to be a u, is going to go face down, or we call it a sad face, and that is going to be letter B. So you can see that here letter B is a face down graph. You can see that it's a U-shaped graph, but if it's a power 4, then you will see a little flat on the vertex here. If it is x to the power 2, then it's going to be kind of a corner from here, and little flat if it's x to the power 4. Face down because the negative. X to the power 4 is just simply U-shaped graph, no translation, and it's a smiley face like that and flat on the bottom here, and that is F graph. You can see that here. Letter E graph, x to the power 3, that's the parent graph for a cubic function, and it always crosses at 0, 0, and will not be translated left or right, and simply will cross origin. So this is very simple graph, positive, rising from left to right and cutting at 0, 0. This one has something next to it, so x to the power 4 minus x squared. So it's again a U-shaped graph, but then it will most likely a W type of a shape. So like that. So anything that when you have x to the power 4, x to the power 6 is going to be a U or a W shaped graph. And if it is positive, it's going to go face up. If negative, face down. So these are some of the features you can keep in mind when you match the graph with the functions. But when we find the x-intercept, not from the graph, but from the equation using algebra, now we're going to work on that. So let's just find out the x-intercept algebraically from function A. So when you solve function A, to solve it, we're going to put that equal to 0. And we are going to find out the GCF of x cubed minus x. So GCF is x. Inside, you're left with x squared minus 1 equal to 0. And then here you're going to apply the difference of square formula, which is a square minus b square equal a minus b times a plus b. So you're going to put them equal to 0 one by one, and you got x equals 0, x equals 1, and x equals negative 1. And you can see that that's exactly what we got from the graph, negative 1, 0, and 1. X-intercept, or x values, or zeros. Similarly, when you're going to solve for letter B, you're going to put that equal to 0. And this time you're going to take out the x out, and inside the bracket it's going to change its sign. So x squared minus 1 equals 0. X minus 1 times x plus 1 equals 0. Put them equal to 0 one by one. And then you solve for x. So this one, x equals 0 by dividing negative 1. X equals 1, x equals negative 1. So the same thing that you got from the graph on D, negative 1, 0, and positive 1. For letter D, they're all equal to 0, because if you put x to the power 4 equals 0, it's going to be all equals 0. X to the power 4, when you put that equal to 0, that's going to give you x to the power equals negative 1. Negative, negative cancel. They all equal to plus or minus 1, plus or minus 1. So for letter B graph, you can see that it's negative 1 and positive 1. So negative 1 and positive 1. For letter E, if you put x cube equals 0, it's just 0 for x intercept. For D is 0 and E is 0. For F, you're going to solve this by plugging it equal to 0, x squared common. That's going to be x squared minus 1 equals 0. So just like similarly on B and A, you're going to get 0, x equals -1, and x equals 1. And that's the C graph or UW graph, that is -1, 0, and +1.